Still 3 weeks away from the SEC championship game, but we've got it all set with Alabama and Florida. As you look across the nation, the conventional wisdom is Florida obviously gets in with a win over Alabama. The Tide's probably in regardless. Same deal with Notre Dame, probably even if they lose a close ACC championship game. Is there a situation out there that you find intriguing to find out whether it be that the committee is going to unveil something tomorrow night that could be a little bit interesting, or what scenarios would you like to see play out or see come to fruition?
Well, obviously, we're watching Ohio State and what happens with games that may or may not be canceled and whether or not that they can play in the Big Ten championship game. I think that's wildly fascinating. Is Notre Dame as good as we think, or what they're doing? Can they beat Trevor Lawrence and Clemson on a neutral field in Charlotte? And if they do, because right now we're all sitting here saying, okay, well, it's Alabama, it's Ohio State, it's Notre Dame, and it's Clemson. Pick which order you want them in. What if Notre Dame is legitimately good enough to beat Clemson twice and eliminate them? What if Ohio State can't play the minimum number of games that qualifies them for the college football playoff? Right now, they're in question for the Big Ten championship, let alone the college football playoff. What happens if all we're sitting here on December 19th with Alabama and Notre Dame? Well, then where do we go? Like, do you start to talk about these non-power fives who should deserve a chance? BYU and Cincinnati, hey, they, in a wacky year, they can't always determine who they schedule. I think that's what's fascinating, is that we don't know the outcome of the virus over the next 2 weeks. What happens if Clemson has an outbreak, hypothetically, and again loses to Notre Dame in a championship game in 3 weeks? There's so many intangibles that happen week to week. Look at Florida State. They've had 2 games canceled hours before kickoff. I think there's so many intangibles in 2020. And again, we don't know what's going to happen. That you got Alabama, which we naturally assume. I think we're assuming Notre Dame, even with a loss to Clemson, now that Notre Dame's gotten past North Carolina, that Alabama and Notre Dame are in. After that, funky things can happen, and then you start to go, okay, well, who justifies being in after those guys? Is it Texas A&M? Is it Florida with hypothetically 2 losses? Is it Northwestern with 1 loss to Michigan State? There's so many. Or is it BYU who hasn't played anybody? There's so many variables that are going to unfold over 3 weeks. It'll be interesting to look back on this interview in 3 weeks, Mark, and say, boy, how much have things changed on December 20th?
As this election process has progressed, starting in 2014, it seems as though the committee used to have those pillars, conference championship, an extra data point, bad losses, quality wins, et cetera, to where they seem to lean on just, we got to select the 4 best teams. And Ohio State seems to be the team that everybody's looking at in regards to, they played 4 games, and they haven't been the most impressive opponents or performances by Ohio State. They've won easily 3 out of the 4, but again, Indiana's a decent team, but besides that, playing the bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten, they can't help that. But at the same time, there's a scenario out there that's very likely that Ohio State's going to have a better record than Indiana and beating them head-to-head and not qualify for the Big Ten championship game, and then still go play another game, probably against a Wisconsin on the same weekend, that the committee could say, you know what, we know it's not Northwestern, it's Wisconsin. What's the difference? It's still a good team, and Ohio State's playing them, so we'll select them anyway.
Well, this is where it's an odd year. And you know what? The powers that be needed to make it, to expand the playoff. We can all, if we were all being honest, we can do away with the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa. We can do away with bowl season. Let's narrow it down. Let's go to, say, 8 bowl games with 16 teams, and let's have a different playoff. Society as a whole, it's an odd year. It's a throwaway year. I'm justifying it as a parent. I'm justifying as a business owner. I'm justifying it as a sports fan. College basketball came on the other day, and I'm watching college basketball and trying to figure out what's happening. You know what? There's no reason to stick by the standard that we would stick by each and every year to determine a champion because we just saw the New Era Pinstripe Bowl get canceled. I figure it out. You can do a 1 year. You can do a 1 year change, and we can get the college football season or the college football result, and that's what we want. We want the result, right? At the end of the day, we want to declare a champion. So what do? It's an odd year. There's going to be an asterisk by it, regardless of what happens, because when we look back on this year, it's been strange. Go to 16. It should have happened. It won't happen now. Go to 16 teams. Go to 8 teams. I don't care. But what you just described is going to be, it's going to be impossible for us to look at 4 teams and say, well, that was the best decision we made, because we don't know what's going to happen over the next 3 weeks. And quite frankly, I think there are good enough teams to go in there and compete. Otherwise, it's very simple. Go back to the old formula. Go back to the BCS. Let the computers decide. Put 2 teams in that we as humans can't choose. We have to let the AI decide and pick a champion that way. This is the easiest thing in the world, and it's not going to happen. It's an odd year. It's not a college football season. We've gotten it to the best we can get, but you should have made the change to give us a fun, entertaining postseason to declare a champion, and it hasn't happened. So, Mark, to answer your question, I don't know how we arrive at the 4 best teams.
Well, I like the idea. I don't think we necessarily arrive with the 4 best teams or the 4 teams that earned it anyway, even in a regular season. But I like your idea with 16 teams, because you're kind of just cleaning up all the excess and just making sure that, hey, we didn't miss anyone. We are going to give everyone a fair shot that in any conceivable way earned it, whether they played some kind of close to a full schedule, like the teams in the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 that played almost a full schedule, versus those teams that we just kind of know. Ohio State, they're one of the best teams in the country, versus those teams like BYU, where they're not playing anybody. They're winning every game by 40 points. They're not playing anyone, but that's not their fault. They had to reconstruct a schedule. And then you just collect them all and you let them play, and you wipe out some of these bowl games. And it sounds like a good idea to me.
And that's the way it should be. Again, because let's be honest, as human beings, 2020 has not been normal, and nobody should argue that. Nobody will argue that. The college football season has not been normal. I love college football season. I own a parking lot down by the stadium, and I went down yesterday or Sunday and was cleaning it up, getting ready for the off season, and I haven't tailgated like I normally do. I haven't enjoyed the college football season. It's just a weird year, and to be quite honest, we're going to look back on this, whatever it is. And there's, again, as I said earlier, there's going to be an asterisk. And you know what? Why not? Why not open it to 8 teams or 16 teams and extend the season? We're already going to get some form of college football in the spring. Maybe it's FCS, but there's going to be football in the spring. It's an odd year, and I'm with you on this. Ohio State may have their game canceled this week, which eliminates them from the Big Ten championship, which is ridiculous, which is fair and ridiculous at the same time. But the bottom line is, you're right. How do you take an Ohio State team who plays, 5 games, 7 games, I don't know, 6 games, or whatever it is, over the Big Ten champion who Indiana's got 1 loss? We know this. It's hard for teams to go undefeated in college football. That's my plea. We're not going to get it. I enjoy what I get every Saturday, except for Carolina football right now, which is that's a whole other. But it's not perfect in 2020, and they have messed up. We haven't. I think we have it. You and I have it. I think the fans have it. But the powers that be have messed up on how to wrap up this weird season that we all hope and pray will never happen again.
The fear out there might be, if we give them 16 this year, we're never going to be able to go back without some huge outcry of we need more teams.
Well, whose fear is that, Mark? Let's get more college football. Bring them in. Bring us to 14, 15. Who's year-round college football? We love college football. In the South, we love college. We love all sports. But let's have more games, more college football games. Give me 27 games. I'm all for it. If you're going to make me endure a 162 game Major League Baseball season, if I got to watch an 82 game NBA season, more college football, those kids will figure it out. They're tough and young. I was there once. I was 5'7", and I partied like crazy in 5 Points in Columbia. I didn't play college football, but you know what? I could have persevered. There is no such thing as more college football that's bad for the rest of us.
Bam. I couldn't close it any better than that. Will Gunter, 107.5, The Game in Columbia, South Carolina. Will, it's always a good conversation. Appreciate it so much.
Love talking broad spectrum. I love talking South Carolina with you, but when we get to talk broad spectrum, it really gets me excited, as you can see, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.